Welcome back to Boxing with Mannix and Mora. I'm Chris Mannix.
And I'm Sergio Mora.
On this episode, we're going to talk about the fight card that we were at this past weekend, Sergio. Floyd Schofield headlining his second main event. Also some fights underneath with Bektir and Melikuziev picking up a win and Gabriela Fundora becoming the youngest undisputed champion. He's 22 years old now, undisputed at 112 pounds. But Sergio, let's start with Floyd Schofield in that main event. Floyd Schofield, one of the better young prospects in boxing, 22 years old, 17-0, coming in against his toughest opponent to date, Rene Giron, who had some very good wins earlier in his career, most notably against Carlos Balderas. Fell in some hard times after that, but was riding a 3-fight win streak going into this fight against Schofield. What we saw was Schofield dominate on the scorecards, but maybe not look as good as some of the people on his team wanted him to. Winds up taking the unanimous decision. What was your take on Schofield's performance?
Man, they're being too hard on him. I think everyone's being too hard on him, including Oscar De La Hoya, who gave him a C-. I don't get it. When at the end of the broadcast, Grisham asked me what I thought, and I said, hey, a solid A. You know, I haven't rewatched the fight, but being there, he dominated the fight. He went for the knockout. He got hurt and passed the test. You want to see all this in a young prospect. So maybe I got carried away with an A, but a B+++, absolutely. Because that you want to test your young up-and-coming fighters. Now, this is just him as a 22-year-old, like you said, 17-0 coming up. But as a fighter to face Tank or Shakur Stevenson or anyone else, that he proved he's not ready yet. And it's not because of his skill, man. It's not because of the speed or power or his the gene to want to entertain the fans and the crowd. It's his maturity. He needs to mature, man. He needs to realize that boxing is more important than fighting. And when he wants to entertain the fans, great. But he also needs to win the fight and not put himself in danger. That's what he needs to pick up some maturity and some character. And I think he picked it up last night.
You know, I disagree. I thought it was a C-level performance.
I don't get it, man. I don't get people like you, and I don't even get Oscar De La Hoya. So please explain yourself.
Well, to be fair, Floyd Schofield himself also gave himself a C after the fight. So I think he understood that was not a outstanding performance by any stretch. You saw the things in Schofield that you got used to seeing. You saw the athleticism, the speed, the power on his shots, but we didn't get to see what you were calling for, which was a jab. We didn't see a lot of that. We saw it a little bit early on, but as the fight wore on, we saw him engage in the same ways we've seen him engage in the past. Twice he got into trouble. In the third round, towards the end of it, he got clipped, and he was hurt bad enough, Sergio, that he missed his stool going back into the corner. So whatever you feel about the shots he was taking, if you are wobbled enough to miss your stool, that tells me that you're a little banged up. Then you go forward, the 11th round, kind of a flash knockdown, but he did get clipped in the top of the head and went down in the 11th round of that fight. So I thought it was fine, but it wasn't the kind of step up, step forward type of performance that I was looking for. I mean, Floyd Schofield is out there as the number 2 contender for the WBA, calling for a big fight against Shakur Stevenson or Tank Davis. If nothing else, Sergio, I think we have to agree on this. He is nowhere near ready for those types of fights. On that, you, me, Oscar De La Hoya, other people in boxing, we have to be on the same page there, right?
Yeah, no, he's not ready. And let me answer the questions you just said. As far as the stool goes, that was his corner's fault. He may have been a little shaken up, but I don't think he was
missed the stool.
Listen to me. The stool wasn't even there. I don't even think the stool was there. They put it
stool was there. Stool was there. He missed it. No, you're he missed the stool.
Go back and watch it
he is a meme for that.
The first thing I need to see is did they put the stool there? Because that's the number one thing a corner needs to do.
It was there.
From the outside, they put it in, then they get in the ring. But no. I'm not remembering if the stool was there or not. But either way, all right. So he missed the seat and he fell off because he was a little shaken. Okay, but he still got up and dominated, man. And more body shots. I wanted to see more body shots as well. So more jabs, more body shots. But he's a young fighter, man. I mean, right now he needs to control and check his excitement, control and check his willingness to entertain the fans and his promoter. And he was predicting a fourth round knockout. Stop predicting knockouts, because that was another thing. And we caught this in the fighter meeting when we talked to him. He was overconfident. He was brimming with confidence, saying he was going to knock him out. How are you going to knock out a tough Mexican that's never been knocked out? Not by any of the 8 undefeated fighters that he's faced. So I just think he went in there way overconfident, wanting to please everybody. And the thoughts of Shakur Stevenson and everyone else, and Tank and everyone else watching, that went on his mind. And anytime you go looking for the knockout, it's a recipe for disaster in boxing.
Yeah, and one of the things that was a red flag as well was he was not listening to the instructions of his corner between each round. I mean, say what you want about his father, but his father, from really like the second or third round on, really the third round after he got into that trouble exchanging, was in his face round after round saying, don't fight like that. You remember my interview with him in the corner after I think the 6th or the 7th round, when he's screaming at his son, don't try to knock him out. This guy can't be knocked out. And round after round, Floyd Schofield seemed to just kind of shrug off those instructions. And I think that's a problem. I mean, you always talk about listen to your trainer, follow the advice of your trainer. Like, these are the guys you put in charge of your career, follow their advice. He didn't do that. And, that to me is a problem, because when you take on guys like Giron, who are, B-level guys, right? Giron is a good fighter, but he's a B-level guy. You've got to be able to have a more diverse bag of offensive weapons. Like you can't, tricks. You can't just go out there and start winging combinations, hope to knock a guy with a great chin out. You've got to be a body puncher. You've got to be a more effective jabber. Like there were ways, Sergio, for him to make that an easy fight. He didn't do it. Like if he had just stuck with his jab, which he was doing the first couple of rounds, he might have made Giron's corner and be like, you know what, this is dumb. We're not doing this anymore. But instead, he got in these exchanges and he gave Giron opportunities to do what he did in the later stages of that fight. So to me, good that he got a win. Good that he got the experience going 12 rounds. Good that he got to face an opponent the caliber of Giron. But, the idea that he's ready for a championship level fight, that's just not there. Like I gave a list of potential opponents after the fight. I think we're talking about guys like Edwin De Los Santos or Zaur Abdullayev or Lucas Badi. There's a handful of Roger Gutierrez is someone I would probably put on that list, a former champion. Like guys like that are durable but past their prime are definitely better tests, I think, for a guy like Floyd than the top tier guys he's looking for.
Man, I think you're being hard on them too, man. I think when Scofield goes and looks at this fight, other than not listening to his corner and wanting to be more exciting, mind you, this is his second main event. So he wants to continue being the headliner. And in order to do that, you can't just win one-sided by jabbing. So he wants to be a little bit of an entertainer.
Yeah, but once you figure out that the guy can't be stopped, like don't go out there and put your record at risk.
That's what I was getting to, and I was gonna use the word that you use, unknockoutable. Yeah, and that's not a word. I don't think it's a word, but yeah, a guy that's not gonna go anywhere. A guy that's never been knocked out. He's been in there with some good fighters that's never been beaten. You can't go for knockouts with that. That's just a learning experience. He was winning the fight with ease. Anytime he got in trouble is when he started mixing it up and staying in there too long. He's gonna learn from this. This was a lesson, and that's the reason I think everyone's being way too hard on him. Way too hard on him. When he goes back and sees it, I think he's gonna be pleased with his performance, his toughness. He passed the test of finally getting dropped. Everyone needs to pass those tests, and he didn't get cut either. That's another thing, man. So let's just look at the bright side of all the things he did, man. We want to see how kids our young fighters are going to react when they're hurt. We saw it, and he passed it, and it's still a one-sided fight other than that one knockdown. This is going to make him a way better fighter than if he would have got a fourth-round knockout like he predicted. In the long run, this was the best thing that could have happened for the young Floyd Schofield.
Well, I think that people are hard on him because he sets the bar so high.
Right.
Like he puts himself in the category of guys that have been world champions and elite level fighters for a long time. Like it's not us saying that I believe he's going to be the greatest fighter of all time. That's him saying that. It's not us saying we're ready for Tank, we're ready for Shakur, we're ready for Devin Haney. It's him saying, look, I beat these guys up in sparring, and his dad saying, he beat these guys up in sparring.
Yeah.
He's ready to go up against him. Like, he's the one like putting the bar as high as it is. If he didn't do that, if he had just said, look, I'm learning on the job, it's a lie, I'm making my way, I don't think we'd be having this exact type of conversation in the aftermath of that fight. But the reality is and even afterwards in my interview with him in the ring, he's like, I'm ready for Shakur. Nobody believes that.
No, he's not.
Nobody believes that. Oscar doesn't believe that. You don't believe that. Nobody believes that. He needs one or two more mid-level fights. He needs to show growth in those fights before you put him in the ring with a top-tier guy.
You got to call yourself great before the world does. And Floyd Schofield, I like the kid. When we talk to him in the fight, when we talk to him in the fighter meetings, I mean, his ambition is through the roof. That's what you want in a fighter. That's what a promoter wants. That's what fans need. They want fighters like Floyd Schofield who want to take the absolute best. They don't want to wait no time. The problem is that he needs a manager. He needs the people that care for him the most, and trainer and his father. They're the ones that need to slow him down. But it was Floyd Sr. that was actually saying, no, I've seen the sparring. He can kick all their asses. So it's not just Junior that's the problem here, okay? I think it's his team. I think it's his father as well. I think everyone needs to slow down a little bit and realize, okay, all right, we finally ran into some resistance with the tough Mexican that he overwhelmed and dominated if it was in for that one round. So that was a learning experience. I'm still gonna praise the kid. I like everything I saw, man. Everything from the resilience to the speed to the power to him wanting to entertain and then him passing the test with adversity. That's why I give him such a hard grade. And people need to stop being so hard on him, man. Yes, he could have jabbed more, and yes, he could have thrown more body shots. Other than that, he passed my test.
Hey, it's his own promoter, one of the greatest fighters of all time, in Oscar De La Hoya, who gave him that C-. And like I said, after the fight, in his post-fight interviews with reporters, he gave himself a C. So I think that's a reasonable grade for a fight like that. All right, let's talk about the co-main event. Bektemir Melikuziev going up against David Stevens. Super middleweight fight, sort of. We'll get to that in a minute. Melikuziev coming off a win where he suffered a nasty cut against Pierre de Bombay. David Stevens, he picked up a first-round knockout in his last fight. Before that, he was knocked out in the first round of a fight against Joshon James. So, this was kind of billed early on, Sergio, as something of a stay busy fight for Melikuziev. A fight that he could easily win, move on, keep his place in the rankings. But it turned out to be a lot more. I mean, one thing I learned after the fact about this fight was that going into this camp and going into this fight, which Melikuziev learned about only about 4 weeks ago, he had to lose north of 30 pounds. He lost north of 30 pounds in 4 weeks to get down to that 170-pound limit. That's crazy. That's crazy. Like, people in his team were telling me, like, there was no camp for this. It was just about losing weight and getting down. And look, I think they believed that the David Stevens that they saw against Joshon James 2 fights earlier when he got knocked out in the first round, they thought that was who they were getting. They thought they were going to blow through this guy in the first round. They couldn't do it, and they managed to squeeze out a decision, but this was probably as bad as we have seen Beck look in a win. What do you think?
I said it on the telecast. I mean, you use the word unknockoutable, and I use the word Pyrrhic victory. And
you were right about that one, too. You were right. I was wrong.
Their senior writer, editor at Sports Illustrated, give me my credit.
You kind of threw me for a bit there with that, but yeah.
Too much blood. He shed too much blood for the little that he gained. He took steps backwards, and I agree. I think he's regressing. Beck the Bully is regressing, and he's stuck in between styles, whether he's a big power puncher or he's a boxer. And we got to give credit to David Stevens as well. I mean, there was a look in his eye. There was a confidence when we talked to him, and he came with a game plan, and he had the experience, and he had the resume. I just think they overlooked him. And as far as the weight goes, I'm telling you right now, I got first-time experience of that. I mean, I lost 28 pounds in 6 weeks when I defended my title with Vernon Forrest. I was a shell of myself, man. A shell of myself. And to this day, I thank God I didn't get knocked out. I still went the distance. And I think that's what happened with Melikuziev. You know, he lost way too much weight. He got overconfident with a guy in Stevens that he thought he was just going to, run over and bully. And it was a perfect storm of just everything going wrong with him. But on the bright side, he still won. So I think in his next fight, we're going to find out if Beck the Bully is regressing and if that knockout loss that Rosado gave him is going to be permanently, damaging. He's not going to come back from that. I mean, we're going to find out in the next fight. We really are, because he's stuck in between styles, and I think he's going backwards. I think his team knows it as well.
I don't know that he is going backwards. I think my biggest takeaway from Beck from that fight was that Beck needs to operate in a more professional manner outside the ring. Not in terms of conditioning and all that, but he's always been a guy that says yes to anything, right? Like any fight, any weight, against any opponent.
I see where you're going, Mannix.
And this was kind of an example of that, Sergio, where he's like, you know what? You're going to give me a fight on 4 weeks' notice? I'm over there eating cannolis, whatever I'm doing over in Europe for however long a time. I'll come back. I'll get in shape. I'll take this fight. I'll keep my career moving forward. You can't do that against everybody. And look, they got the best version of David Stevens. My other takeaway is that David Stevens, he's going to look back at those middle rounds and have some regrets. Like if he had stepped on the gas in those middle rounds, and I'm talking like 6-10, 6-11, he might have been able to pull out what would have been a career-changing victory. Instead, he kind of took his foot off the gas and allowed Beck, who was clearly out of shape and clearly winded in the second half of that fight, to pull off that victory. Beck, he's got to take a more professional approach. I mean, we love that about these Uzbeki guys, right? About these guys in the Diaz camp, the MJ Akhmadalievs, the Israel Madrimovs, the Shakram Giyasovs. Like, we love it about these guys. They always just want to fight. They'll fight anybody, anytime, for any amount of money. But if you're Beck and you're sitting there kind of in the middle of those rankings right now, you got to be strategic here. Like, you've got to make sure that you get a full 8-week camp for whatever fight you're getting. Because if he had lost that fight, I don't know if you can say it would have been over for Beck, but that would have been 2 losses in the last 3 years, neither one of them at a particularly high level. It would have been really tough for him to find his way back into a championship contention, or at least in a position to force a mandatory on somebody. So, that to me was a bullet dodged for Bektimir Melikuziev.
That's the problem with being a tough guy. It's hard for you to say no and refuse a fight, but we're going to go back to matchmaking. But matchmaking is a science, so I think Beck the Bully and his team, they need to realize what styles are they going to confront that's going to give them issues and resistance, and what styles are just not good for them. The word no is very powerful. You got to learn how to say no whenever it comes to boxing. And boxers hate saying no to opponents because they feel like they're afraid or they don't want to fight them for a certain style. Shit. I didn't care. You know how many times I said no to fighters? I said no to Sergio Martinez. I said no to Gennady Golovkin. I said no to James Kirkland. I said no. I can continue going, but I said no to a lot of. I said no to Erislandy Lara. They offered me him when I was the Golden Boy, because I know these guys are going to be a headache. Or sometimes I don't even belong with them. I said no to Jermaine Taylor, which I regret now. But you got to learn how to say no. And sometimes either you're too tough for your own good, or in my case, sometimes you're too careful and smart for your own good.
I think there's a middle ground there, Sergio. There's a middle ground between saying yes too often and doing what you did, which is say no to basically everybody.
Hey, listen, but I'm still here. So I'm still here in relevance. So
correct, you are.
My nose worked out.
There's no question about that. Beck, we didn't see the body attack from him either in that fight. That's been his MO for most of his career. We just didn't see a lot of the usual Beck the Bully. And look, maybe this is an aberration. From what I'm told, he is going to keep his place in the 168-pound rankings. There was some weirdness going on with that fight where at the weigh-in, Beck weighed in at 170, and all the reporting after that was Beck missed weight. Well, Beck's team says, no. Like, because of all the circumstances coming into the fight with him being on vacation, short notice, they said the contract weight was for 170. Beck hit the contract weight. So hopefully that doesn't cost him a place in the 168-pound ranks, and he can come back against a good opponent and maybe look a little bit better next time around. Last one, Sergio, was what I thought a fight that birthed a new star in women's boxing. Gabriela Fundora knocking out Gabrielle Alanis in the 7th round of their fight to become the undisputed champion at 112 pounds. She is the youngest undisputed champion, just 22 years old. And Sergio, I know you kind of snickered a little bit before the fight when I said that Gabriela Fundora has a chance to be the greatest women's boxer of all time. Have you changed your tune on that now after watching a dominant performance by a physical freak, a 5'9", 112-pound Gabrielle Fundora, who not only beat Gabrielle Alanis, but stopped her, like brutally knocked her out. 3 of the last 4 fights, Sergio, for Fundora, knockouts. These are championship fights, and she's knocking women out. We don't see that. Not very often in women's boxing.
I can't wait till Clarissa Shields hears this about you. You're going to call her the GOAT in 10 more
no,
years?
She's not. In 10 years, maybe. Clarissa Shields, right now, the GOAT. But look, hey, greatest of all times, they change. A long time, Michael Jordan, by far and away, the GOAT. Now some people say, hey, LeBron James might be the GOAT.
No. See right there, let me stop you. I know you write for basketball, but that's what's the word I'm looking for?
Blasphemy.
That's just
Blasphemy.
disrespect. That's
Blasphemy.
disrespect. Yeah, don't you ever do that again, all right? I'm not even a big basketball fan, but you don't compare LeBron to MJ, okay? You don't even compare him to Kobe. I don't care about the stats. So stay there. Let's stick to boxing.
Good.
Pissed already.
All right. Do you now have a higher opinion of Gabriella Fundora after watching that performance?
100%. I think she made a case for herself in the pound for pound rankings. What she did was incredible. I mean, look, women's boxing they get a bad case because they say they always go the distance. They probably 2-minute rounds. They don't get knockouts. They're not exciting. All that's changing. All that is changing. When we got Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor and what they did at MSG, history was made, or herstory. And now you're seeing, fighters, incredible fighters doing incredible things. Sinisa Serrano, who just retired undefeated. And I've known that girl since I was 8 years old. Incredible what she did in the sport.
I've heard of her, yes.
Of course, Clarissa Shields. And now Fundora, Gabriela Fundora has a high ceiling, a tall ceiling, and the pun intended. But to be the GOAT, I mean, to say that she has the potential to be the greatest, no, man. Because look at what happened to her brother. Look at what happened to the brother. The brother has the same style as her. The brother's a freak, tall, southpaw, just like her. He got knocked out. Okay, so that can happen, man. You can't forecast that with just one great performance against a fighter like Alanis. I can tell you that it stole the show. She was the fighter of the night. She became undisputed. Bravo to her, her family, everybody. It's incredible. It was incredible what she did. All right. But to say that she's going to be the all-time great, I mean, it's a slap in the face to great fighters that already done that.
I'm not saying she is an all-time great. I'm foreshadowing all-time greatness because of what I'm expecting to see from Fundora. Now, a couple of things. One, you can't compare the problems her brother has faced with what she could potentially face. Because men's boxing is a lot more dangerous than women's boxing. It's 3-minute rounds, and there's a lot bigger punchers in that in men's boxing. It's true.
I finished defending women's boxing, how it's come along such a long way, and then you just take it back by saying
it's on the same level as men's boxing. It's not. It's not on the same level.
No, come on, Chris Mannix. No, it's equally as dangerous for them.
No, oh my God, no, it's not. Because how many punchers are in women's boxing right now? Like, how many punchers can you name? It's like Amanda, it's Fundora, and who else? Who else would you call a puncher in women's boxing?
Well, they're very young. Women's boxing is very young in the whole landscape of boxing from the beginning to the end. I just think they're evolving. They're evolving into their power, their technique, their training habits. I mean, everything's changing in women's boxing. It has nothing to do with strength, okay? Let me just say that right now. I would say that women are tougher than men. They have a higher pain tolerance. All they need to do is start learning to box behind technique and putting leverage behind punches. That's what I think is happening. It's just the sport came a long way in a short period of time, and now women are starting to discover their power and everything else.
They are, but there are so many more power punchers in men's boxing than there are women. I'm just saying that there is less danger for Gabriella Fundora to get knocked out than there is Sebastian Fundora to get knocked out. And for Gabriella, like, as her body fills out as she gets a little bit older, she's going to be able to climb these weight classes organically. And you think about what weight classes she could go to. I mean, Katie Taylor, who we just talked about, is 5'5". The queen of 135 pounds is 5'5". Clarissa Shields is listed at 5'8". Clarissa's listed at 1 inch shorter than Fundora. Now, she's a naturally bigger woman. I don't expect Fundora to go all the way up to heavyweight or even super middleweight. But could we see Fundora go from 112 pounds to 147 by the end of her career? Yeah, I could see that, which would be a remarkable run of fights. And you also know, Sergio, that if she's able to be successful over the next 10 years, at these multiple weight classes. Her level of competition is going to be a lot better than some of the women in Claressa's weight class. That's the biggest problem Claressa Shields has right now, is that there aren't many elite marketable women. Katie Taylor has Amanda Serrano, has Chantel Cameron. She has got a whole bunch of women that she could fight that make for big, high-level fights. Claressa Shields does not have that. Savannah Marshall was the only one that qualified as that. Now you look at the landscape, like, who's out there? Maybe if you go to 154, you can find some options. I think Fundora, I assume her next fight, go up to 115, start collecting titles there. There's really nobody there. 118, nobody really there right now either. 122, I don't know. Maybe you get all the way up to 126. You're talking about Sky Nicholson fights down the line. Like you're talking about some good, high-profile matchups that if she can win, it's going to put her in a special stratosphere, I think. And Sergio, with that style, she's going to win a lot of fights and look really good doing it. That left hand is legit. That is a power shot. Tell me any other woman in boxing right now that has that one weapon, what matches the straight left hand of Gabriela Fundora? I don't think there is. Like
Amanda is probably a close second, but look, there's a lot to take in there. But what was the word used? Forecasted, basically saying that no one else has done that, and Fundora can be the first one to do it. No, she can't. Amanda Serrano did it in 7 weight divisions, so we've already seen that. You're not predicting.
I'm thinking Fundora could do like 9.
It's already been done. Okay, so
not that Amanda many, Serrano not 9, not 9.
What? 9 what?
9 weight class. You go 112 to 147. That's never been done before.
Well, all I'm saying is she did 7 divisions. All right. So stop predicting the future with Gabriela Fundora here. All right. So just hold.
I'm just saying, Sergio, she is now, to me, she's top 5 pound for pound right now. I think that's reasonable to say. I also think that she is a main eventer. Like, she deserves main event opportunities with the way that she fights. Her fights are entertaining. I keep going back to this, Sergio. Like, sometimes you see fighters, men and women, that get their knockouts early in their career, right? Like, I'm sure you had a bunch of them early in your career. But when you get a little bit older and you face better competition, the knockouts tend to go away. Well, Musino got knocked out. Christina Cruz got knocked out. Alaniz got knocked out, right? Like, these, she's knocking out the best competition. And I think that's going to make her a big-time star. We can debate whether she'd be an all-time great, but I think she's already on the path to becoming a women's star.
She's on the path, but she has a long road to go, okay? You know what I like about her, and I said this on the telecast, their looks are so unassuming. They're like Clark Kent. They look kind of nerdy with the glasses and their suit, and they're very, humble. And then they get in the ring, they take off those glasses, become Superwoman and Superman. I mean, it's incredible. That is their marketing right there. So, yes, as far as everything you said, they have a potential to be a star, okay? Because of that, how it's like Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao was so humble, and he smiled all the way to the ring, and then he'll turn your lights out inside the ring. People like that. People could relate to that. You can sell that. You can package it, and especially her being a woman, you can definitely package that. But she has a long way to go, man. And look, I know I said it's a disrespect to the women that have done it before, and right now you're forecasting too much with that one amazing performance that she had. She stole the night. Let's see if she could do it again. If she can do it again, we're talking about.
It's not just one. I thought the Musino fight was excellent. You and I were among the people that put a little bit of money maybe on Christina Cruz. Said, hey, Christina Cruz, could you beat, you're an elite amateur boxer. Maybe you can beat Fundora. She eventually gets knocked out and was losing on all the cards up until that point. I see such enormous potential in Fundora. And I hope not only does she keep getting the big fights, but I hope she starts headlining. Because, look, women's boxing, the depth isn't there yet, but recently it's been showing out, right? Like, you had the Michaela Mayer, Sandy Ryan fight. That was tremendous. You had this Fundora fight. That was tremendous. I think we both agree the rematch with Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano is going to be tremendous. Like, the top-level women's boxing matches, they're great. They deserve more exposure. So I hope Fundora ultimately gets it. All right, Sergio, we will be back together end of the week in Philadelphia. My question to you is, have you explained to your wife that you are going to be gone for 10 whole days? Because we go straight from Philly to Saudi Arabia, Riyadh season, Latino night. What kind of price are you paying for being away that long?
No comment.